dust swirled around Jedediah Stone's boots as he surveyed the livery stable. A week, 7 days since Silas Blackwood had been found slumped against the hay bale, a single bullet hole marring his temple. The initial assessment pointed to a random act of violence, a product of Copper Canyon's simmering tensions, but Jed felt it in his gut. Something wasn't right. "Anything, Clem?" he asked, his voice raspy from the dry desert air. Clem, a young deputy barely out of his teens, shook his head. "Same as yesterday, Marshal. Tracks leading in, no tracks leading out. Professional job. No witnesses." Jed nodded, his gaze lingering on the faded inscription on a silver calling card left near Blackwood's body, a coiled rattlesnake, its fangs bared, and a single, blood-red ruby nestled in its coils. The card had been traced to Elias Thorne, wealthy landowner and self-proclaimed pillar of the community. Thorne claimed to have been miles away at the time of the murder, attending a meeting in Redemption, an alibi easily corroborated, too easily. He found Thorne waiting for him in the parlor of his sprawling ranch house, the afternoon sun casting long shadows across the lush green lawn. The house reeked of money and privilege, a stark contrast to the dusty poverty that clung to the rest of Copper Canyon. "Marshal Stone," Thorne greeted him, his voice smooth and practiced. "To what do I owe the displeasure?" Jed ignored the sarcasm. "Mr. Thorne, I need to ask you a few more questions about Silas Blackwood." Thorne sighed, a gesture of weary patience. "I've already told your deputies everything I know. I barely knew the man. Yet, a calling card with your mark was found at the scene." Jed's voice was flat, devoid of emotion. He circled Thorne slowly, a predator assessing its prey. Thorne's composure cracked. A flicker of something, fear, crossed his face before he masked it with a dismissive shrug. "A malicious prank, I suspect. Someone trying to smear my reputation." "Smear it with a ruby." Jed stopped, his gaze boring into Thorne's. "A ruby that could fetch a handsome price on its own." Thorne's hands clenched into fists. "I resent that insinuation." Jed leaned closer, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "Silas Blackwood was digging into something, Mr. Thorne. Something your father was involved in. Something you're trying to bury." The color drained from Thorne's face. He stumbled back, knocking over a small table with a crash. A single crimson ruby tumbled from a flower bed near the veranda steps. It lay gleaming on the dust, a silent accusation. I didn't mean for it to happen," Thorne stammered, his voice barely audible. He was threatening to expose our father's dealings, mining claims, forced relocations. I tried to reason with him. And when reason failed, Jed pressed, his voice relentless. Thorne hung his head, defeated. "I hired a man, a drifter, paid him well to scare him off. I didn't tell him to. He trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. The man in the hat," Jed finished for him. "Yes," Thorne whispered. "Where is he now?" "Gone. He was paid and left. I haven't seen him since." Jed signaled to Clem, who was waiting outside. "Take Mr. Thorne into custody." As Clem led Thorne away, the wealthy landowner's carefully constructed facade of respectability crumbled, revealing the desperation and fear of a man caught in a web of his own making. Jed stared at the single ruby on the ground. The immediate danger was contained, but he felt a deep sense of unease. Silas Blackwood hadn't been digging into just mining claims. He suspected there was a larger conspiracy at play, something that reached far beyond Copper Canyon. He glanced towards the distant mountains, their peaks shrouded in the fading light. The sun was setting, casting long, ominous shadows across the land. He knew with a certainty that chilled him to the bone that Copper Canyon's troubles were far from over. The man in the hat was just a pawn in a much larger game, and he was just beginning to understand the stakes.